Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to make blueberry muffins. And again, another really easy recipe, not a whole lot of ingredients, and it actually doesn't take a whole lot of time to make either. So there's a lot of things that I have in front of me that you can't see because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna quickly go over what I have in front of me that you might not be able to see. So for ingredients, I have my flour, I have sugar, I have half a cup of butter, I have salt, 2 eggs, vanilla, milk, baking powder, and blueberries. Now for the blueberries, I used frozen blueberries and I thawed them overnight. So you can use either frozen blueberries that have been thawed, or you can use fresh blueberries, okay? Either one is perfectly fine. So let's get started. The first thing I want you to do is to go wash your hands if you haven't done that already. And the next thing you're gonna do is you are going to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. So 375. So please go do that now if you haven't already. And the last thing I'm gonna get you to do before we get started is to spray or line a 12 muffin tin here with either Pam, or you can line it with little cupcake rounds. The little paper cups. I just sprayed mine with Pam and that's perfectly fine. And you're just gonna put that aside. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do here is to beat the butter and the sugar until light and soft. Okay, so I have half a cup of butter here. And remember, we've been talking about how do you measure half a cup of butter. Well, this little stick here is exactly half a cup of butter. It has little measurements here, and every single little cube of these is half a cup. So what I've done is I've just let it sit overnight to soften, but even just a couple hours before you bake ahead of time, whoops, is perfectly fine. So I'm just gonna add that in there. And sugar. We need 1 1/4 cups of sugar. So 1 cup plus 1/4 cup, okay? So remember, with sugar, we don't need to scoop it in, but I'm getting low on sugar here, so I'm just gonna kind of tilt my container like that. I just did a giant scoop of it out. And I'm gonna level that off with my knife and add it to my bowl. So there's 1 cup. And now I need my 1/4 cup. Again, I'm just gonna scoop it in there like that. And again, with the back of my knife, I'm just going to level it off. Please, as always, pause the video and restart it if I'm going too fast. Always good to make sure you're following along. It makes it a little bit easier, I think. Okay, so we are going to beat this until it is light and fluffy. So again, with this, you don't need one of these. A handheld beater is perfectly fine. This is just what I have. Watch out for flying sugar. And this might take a bit until it's all combined. And when you're doing this, it might be a good idea to grab a spatula or to have one on hand, because You may find that you need to scrape down your bowl every once in a while as this is stirring. Yes, be careful for flying sugar. So it is starting to come together here. I'll show you in a couple minutes. So I'm just gonna stop it because I wanna show you what I have so far. I'm not done beating it yet, but I just want to show you what I have. So this is what I have so far. So it is starting to come together into little crumbs, but we want to mix it more. So if you're at this point in your beating, you are going to beat it for longer, okay? I'm just putting mine on higher. You may find that turning up the speed might help. Okay, it's really starting to come together here. Awesome. So it's really starting to come together now. I'll show you in just a second here. Okay, so it's really starting to come together here, as you can see. And I think I'm almost done beating that. I'm gonna maybe beat it for another maybe 30 seconds. And then we're gonna start adding our eggs. All right, I'm gonna stop that. So this is where we're at, and I'm gonna start adding my eggs now. So what I've done is I've just grabbed a bowl here because remember in my last videos, I always like to crack my eggs into a bowl first in case I get any eggshells. Then it's way easier to get the eggshells out of here than it would be in here. So we are going to add our eggs one at a time and beat thoroughly between each. So we're just gonna mix quite a bit in between adding each egg. So there's my one egg, no shells in there. So you're just gonna start beating this for maybe until it's really well combined, okay? Okay, until it's nicely combined there. Awesome. So I'm just going to scrape down my beaters here because I want to show you what I have without making a mess on my counter. So that's where I'm at. So the eggs have mixed in really well. It only takes maybe 30 to 45 seconds. So I'm gonna crack my egg into my second egg into a bowl here. Make sure I don't have any shells. No, I don't. And I am going to add it here. And we are going to do the same thing. Lots of mixing and beating in this recipe. I hope it's going okay for you. This is gonna be, I think, the last time where you're gonna need your beaters for this recipe. I'm just gonna turn it up a tiny bit. Okay, it doesn't take too long. I think that's mixed in really nicely. And you actually don't need your beaters anymore for this recipe. Once that's all nicely mixed in, you can put your beaters aside. So give me a couple seconds here. I'm gonna take this guy away. I'm gonna move him to the side. All right. Okay. So I'm just gonna move this a little closer so you can see. Perfect. So what you are gonna need is you are gonna need a wooden spoon. Okay. So now we are going to add in our flour, salt, and baking powder, okay? So there is something that I haven't actually showed you yet that I think is a really great technique when you're making something like muffins. So what I'm gonna need you to do is grab about a medium-sized bowl from your pantry. Okay, so I've got about a medium-sized bowl here. It's not super big. And then what I need you to grab next is a sifter. I'll show you what that looks like. Mine looks a little bit like this. And if you don't have one of these, please don't panic. It's not necessary. It's just something that I would like to show you because it really makes for light and airy muffins. So with our 2 cups of flour, we are going to sift it. Again, if you don't have a sifter, that is okay. You don't need to sift it. So if you don't have a sifter, just add in the 2 cups straight into your bowl, okay? That's perfectly fine. I just find, for me personally, sifting really makes for light and airy muffins. So there's one cup of flour I've scooped out with my spoon. So I'm gonna actually add it into my sifter, okay? And what I'm gonna do is 1 cup at a time. I'm just gonna gently pat this against my hand, lift it up a tiny bit. And this is basically putting air into our flour and making it nice and soft. Okay, so there's the first one. Now I am going to add in my 2nd cup of flour. Scooping it in, so 2 cups total. Or again, if you don't have a sifter, just add this flour directly into your bowl with your butter and your sugar and your eggs. Okay, I'm gonna add that into my sifter here. Okay. Wonderful. So we have light and airy flour right now. Okay, so we're gonna hold off for a second on this. So what I need you to grab now is your vanilla, okay? So for this recipe, we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm just going to put this directly into my bowl with my butter and my sugar. 1 teaspoon directly into my bowl with my butter and my sugar. Okay? And just very simply with a wooden spoon, you're gonna go ahead and mix it together. For maybe 15 seconds. And then we're gonna start adding our flour and our baking powder, all of our dry ingredients. Okay, so just make sure, I'll try and tilt it so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So just mix it up, just so it's nicely combined. No need to use your beaters at this point. All right. Now I am going to add in my 2 cups of flour. So remember how we just sifted it? You're gonna need to remeasure because you're gonna find something very interesting that has happened after we sifted our flour. So measure out 1 cup of flour, level it off. So there's 1. Scoop your second one in. Okay. I'm gonna level this off here. Now the interesting thing that happens when you sift is you actually are left with some extra flour. Now that's because we've added so much air into our flour. Okay, so I'm gonna add this in here. And now I'm gonna move on to my salt and my baking powder. So salt, you only need 1/2 teaspoon of salt, okay? 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay, there we go. There's my 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Baking powder. We need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay? 2 teaspoons. So again, I'm just gonna kind of go into here. I'm gonna need to grab my other baking powder. This one's almost empty. Luckily, I've got a brand new container here. All right, there we are. Okay, so I'm going to grab my knife for this one, scoop it in and level it off. There's 1. And there's 2. Perfect. So we're just gonna mix this in here. It is going to form like a dough-like mixture almost. Okay. So what I've done is I've just mixed it a little bit, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a liquid measuring cup that looks like this. Okay, so you're gonna wanna grab a liquid measuring cup, and I'm going to measure out half a cup of milk. Okay, half a cup of milk. So there's my half cup of milk. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add in a little bit into my bowl. I'm just gonna add my milk slowly as I mix. So every maybe 10 seconds, just add a little bit more milk. It's going to become kind of hard to stir, but we want like a batter-like texture. So we don't want it to be a dough, we want it to be a batter. Okay, so there's all my milk, and it's going to form a batter-like texture here. Okay, and you can see how I'm kind of folding it, going under and over. You're gonna need to use your muscles. Perfect. I'm gonna stop right there because it's all nicely combined. Now we are on to our almost last step here. So you are going to need to fold in your blueberries with your wooden spoon. So to the side, I have put 2 cups of blueberries, okay? 2 cups. And I'm going to add them in nicely here. If you have thawed blueberries, you want to try and make sure that not a lot of juice gets in. See how I've got some juice there? You want to try and make it so that you don't have too much juice in there. Okay, so folding, that's what I was doing just before. So I'm gonna very gently lift under and over, under the batter and over. I'm trying to angle this so you can see, and you are going to get a very blueberry-like texture here. Well, a very, very blue batter from your blueberries. What I love about this recipe is it's really full of blueberries, which I think makes for some very tasty muffins. I'm just gonna give it about 1 more fold there. Okay, and there we are. So now you are going to need to grab your pans here. I'm actually just gonna switch these around. Got your pans here, and you're going to grab a kind of like a larger kind of spoon, okay? So for me, I'm just gonna use like a tablespoon, and this is where we are going to scoop our batter into our muffin tins. And you wanna fill them until they're about 3/4 full. And when I say 3/4, so just until the brim. It's okay if they're a little more, that's fine. We've got lots of blueberries in these muffins. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So this recipe, depending how big you make your muffins, you might actually get more than 12. So I'm gonna just kind of fill my muffin tins first. Whoopsie. I'm going to fill my muffin tins first, and then maybe go back and add some more after, just to top them up. These look great. These are going to be very blueberry muffins. Awesome. So it actually looks like I might get 12 exactly. I'm just going to scrape off my wooden spoon because we want all of that batter. See, I don't have a whole lot left. If some of your blueberries are breaking, that's fine, don't worry about it. That's why you just have to be really careful when stirring your blueberries into your batter, is they're very delicate. They are a very delicate fruit to handle. Okay, so I've almost got all of my batter into my muffin tins. I'm just gonna scrape my bowl really well. And you can do this with a spatula as well. So I'm actually going to take my spatula and scrape down the sides of my bowl. Because look at all that batter that just came off the sides of my bowl. So now I can kind of go in and top up the muffins that don't have a lot of batter, or that don't have as much batter as others. Let's do this one here. Okay, these look good. Now, there is another step that is optional. I'm gonna do it because I think it's gonna be very tasty in the end. So you're just gonna grab your sugar again, and you're also going to grab a small container, and you're going to measure out 3 tablespoons leveled of sugar and put it into that small container. There's 2, and there's 3. So now what we're going to do is I'm actually just going to take this sugar and sprinkle it on top of my muffins. This is gonna make for a really nice crunchy top. And for me, I like a crunchy top and a very soft inside. You don't need to use all of this sugar because it is quite a lot. Just a sprinkle on each is perfectly fine. So don't worry about using all of this 3 tablespoons. It's just a guideline. So sprinkle on each. These look great. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just gonna maybe top up a couple of them. Perfect. So I didn't use all of it, so please don't feel like you need to. These are now ready to go into the oven. They do take quite some time. They take between 30 and 35 minutes, so they take at least half an hour. So what I would do is I would set your timer for half an hour and check on them then and see where you think they're at. If they're nice and golden brown, you can take them out, okay? So anywhere between 30 and 35 minutes, I'm gonna set my timer for 30 minutes and see what that gets me. I really hope that this was easy for you to follow along with. And please send me pictures of the muffins that you make. I would love to see your creations, and I will see you next time.